Hi, this is Jan at Learn English with Be Global, and today we're going to learn about idioms from around the house. These are English phrases you might hear that reference items around the house in the idiom itself, but the meanings don't necessarily have to do with the actual house. Our first idiom is one of my favorites to hear, and it is on the house. Have you ever heard that phrase before? It means that someone else paid for something for you. You got something for free. And here's how this would likely happen. Maybe you go to a restaurant and you order something that didn't turn out the way that it was supposed to be cooked. So you tell your server, and they apologize, and they tell their manager or the owner, and if you're lucky, if you're in a generous restaurant, they may come back and say, well, my boss says that this meal is on the house. You don't have to pay for it. Or maybe even the manager or the restaurant owner will come and tell you that personally. It's on the house. It's similar to the idiom that goes, it's on me. It's on me. On the house, it's on me. Meaning, I'll pay for whatever. Usually it's food or drinks. If I say, lunch is on me, that means I'm going to pay for your lunch today. So, when you hear on the house, it's coming from the owners of the restaurant. They may even give you a gift card that promises, next time, you're going to get a free meal on the house. The house implies the restaurant itself. This phrase, you won't hear this phrase happen just when bad things happen to your order or your meal. It would also be appropriate for you to hear the owner of a restaurant or a coffee shop to say, today is special and your drink is on the house, or your meal is on the house. Maybe it's your birthday or something like that. All right? This idiom is to bring down the house. So here, the house isn't referring to a restaurant necessarily. It's usually referring to a live theater or maybe a comedy club. When we say, bring down the house, it means to make an audience clap or laugh enthusiastically. So, if you're performing in a comedic play, or if you're a comedian, and everyone is clapping and laughing at the jokes, you are bringing down the house. It's good. It's as if all the clapping and laughing is making so much movement that the structure of the building is going to shake and fall and come down. So it's a way of describing a successful performance, and usually a comedy. So when you're reading, maybe in the newspaper or a book, or you're reading something online, and you hear someone say, you better put your house in order. It's very good to understand what this means. It sounds like it's saying, maybe you better clean up your house or organize your house or something like that. But that's not at all what it means specifically. It actually means that you will probably be passing away soon. You will probably die soon. And so you need to put your house in order, meaning Let's make sure all the legal documents are taken care of. The people that you want to receive whatever money you have will have it. And that maybe your family can find important documents that only you know about. So if a doctor tells you you need to put your house in order, that's really another way of saying you don't have long to live. So put your house in order. Now, it's not a really fun idiom, but it's important to understand it. And so that's another idiom from around the house. Well, let's move to another idiom from around the house. It is to hit home. Now, the word home in this phrase really represents your heart or your emotions. And the phrase to hit here means to successfully connect on an emotional level. So the phrase is almost always used by the person who is receiving the emotional hit. The person might say, wow, that really hit home. Maybe that emotional connection took place during a lecture or after watching a commercial or a movie or after just seeing something in daily life. So, for example, I might say, I never used to worry about texting while driving until my friend was seriously hurt because she was doing that while driving. It really hit home for me how important it is not to text and drive at the same time. So to hit home is usually a sign or explanation of why some action will take place, some future action. Most forms of intentional communication are designed to hit home in order to produce some kind of outcome. So, to hit home means that something has connected emotionally on a significant level, which will probably create a change in behavior. Another idiom from around the house that has to deal with emotions is to hit the ceiling. What do you suppose that means? If we say someone hits the ceiling, it means they became very angry. It's like someone got so mad they were lifted off the ground and hit the ceiling. Can you use this idiom about yourself or about someone else? Well, you can do both. You can say, when I found out the mechanic lied to me about my car, I hit the ceiling. Or you can say, when my boss saw that I was late again, she hit the ceiling. She got so mad. Or you can say it in the future tense. When my dad finds out about this speeding ticket, he is going to hit the ceiling. It's pretty common. So hitting the ceiling just means to get really angry. So what's another common idiom from around the house? How about down the drain? You know what a drain is, right? It's that hole at the bottom of the sink or bathtub or shower. When something goes down that hole, it's usually completely lost, right? It's very hard to get back something that the water has quickly washed away into the darkness below. So, if we say something has gone down the drain, it means it's wasted, it's lost. So often, if you'll hear it went down the drain. So the pronoun it is often referring to money. You might hear someone say, well, that's $100 down the drain. That just means I just wasted $100. Maybe you bet on something and lost. That is $100 down the drain. It could reference something else like time invested in training, maybe. Maybe you spent a lot of time learning some skill or something that what you thought was important to your career. But then you found out later that the classes you took were not helpful for the job you wanted. So you might say, well, that's 2 years down the draining, 2 years of training down the drain. You mean I just wasted 2 years. So that's also a common idiom, down the drain, taken from life around the house. Okay, another item we find around most homes is a table, right? This is not the prettiest table, but you see what I mean. It's a table. And of course we have an idiom for that, and the idiom is under the table. Well, can you imagine what that means? Well, it usually means to do something secretly. Specifically, it usually means getting paid for something illegally, not paying taxes or extra fees that are legally due. If I say to someone, I think he's getting paid under the table for that, it doesn't mean I think he's crawling under the table to get his paycheck. It means he's getting paid cash and not reporting it to the government. So it's not a positive idiom. It's actually something that implies something that's illegal. So, under the table. Well, another item that you typically find in a house is a shelf. A shelf, as you know, is a support on which you place books or pictures or small art items. So with that in mind, our next common idiom is to be put on the shelf. You might think that to be put on the shelf would imply something positive, something that displays worth, but it actually means kind of the opposite. And I'll explain why. If I say I've been put on the shelf, I mean I'm no longer active, useful, young, or important. You would use it to describe yourself when you're feeling like you've been permanently set aside, when normally you were in the middle of all the action. So now your only purpose is to be on the shelf to collect dust. So you might say, well, I'm keeping up my education so I won't be put on the shelf. Or, since I retired, I feel like I've been put on the shelf. So, that's what it means if someone says to be put on the shelf. It's kind of negative, it's not positive. Well, some houses have fences around them. This is supposed to be a fence. So our next common idiom is on the fence. On the fence. You might be able to guess what the idiom on the fence means if you picture someone sitting on the fence, maybe with one leg on one side and one leg on the other. Oh, this person needs arms. Anyway, it just means, on the fence just means undecided. Of course, politicians must try to convince people who are on the fence how to vote. Or this idiom makes reference to someone who's been undecided for a while. It's not usually about someone who's just taking their time, carefully considering what's important. If someone is on the fence, it means they don't really want to make anyone upset, or they don't want to have to make a decision. So it's not necessarily a positive descriptor. So on the fence is sometimes a negative descriptor, right? But sometimes it's just describing someone who's waiting to see. Maybe they're trying to decide whether or not they will take a trip. They're waiting to have more information. Or maybe people are telling you to buy the newest computer, and you could say, I'm still on the fence about buying that. I'm waiting to see if there are any problems, or maybe there's a cheaper one or a different one that will be better than this new one. So I'm still on the fence. I'm still undecided about that. So that is another idiom from around the house, on the fence. Well, another idiom that includes the idea of something around the house is homesick. Many of you know what it means, but if you don't, homesick just means that you miss home. You're traveling somewhere and you just miss home. You miss the food, or you miss your parents, your friends, or just everything. You're homesick. It could sound like you're sick of home, but that's not what this means ever with this idiom. It always means that you miss your home. So that's homesick. Another very common idiom that uses phrases that we take from around the house is house of cards. And maybe you know this is a popular drama series, and it refers to the idea of an organization or a plan that can easily be destroyed. It's very weak. So if you think of like playing cards stacked on each other, it's going to fall down at any moment. Okay, so we would call that a house of cards. You might say, even though that business looks solid from the outside, it's really a house of cards. Right? It's going to fall at any moment. So that's another good idiom for you to know. So our last idiom that takes its meaning from things around the house is to get one's foot in the door. What does that mean? That usually means to take first steps, to get a start, to get an opening. Usually, often for a job. People who are looking for a job often ask, how do I get my foot in the door? Meaning, the doors for all the jobs seem to be closed and locked. I just want to have a chance to just look in and try. The idea is maybe just getting one foot in the door. You're not asking to step completely inside. It's just an entrance. So, how do you get your foot in the door in your country? In the U.S., it's often, if you know someone who's already in the company, we might say, oh yeah, she got my foot in the door because she already worked there. Another way you can get your foot in the door is to have an understanding of culture, and idioms. So if you ever want a job from a U.S. company, you have already started toward getting your foot in the door because you've watched this video. And I want to thank you for watching this video. And if you like it, hit subscribe and leave a comment below.